Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to Zenful Conversations. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Okay, super duper. Welcome to Zenful Conversations. For information on future guest speakers and our many Zoom offerings, please visit zenfulconversations.com. My name is Zen Brown. I'm your host, and we're here today with guest speaker Case Kenny. Case, thank you so very much for being with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Let's give a little bit of information about Case. Case Kenny is an entrepreneur, a mindfulness expert, host, and founder of the top 25 Apple podcast, New Mindset, Who Dis. I love it. Beloved by some of today's biggest celebrities and featured on Good Morning America. You might recognize him from his viral coffee cup and his post-it quotes on Instagram, which have been shared by millions and featured by Complex, Women's Health, Cosmopolitan, and many more. Created in 2018, Kenny's podcast, New Mindset, Who Dis, love it, features his short, no BS take on all things mindfulness in a relatable way, empowering people to be happier and live more fulfilling lives by changing their mindset in all areas of life, spanning from self-worth, empowerment to dating, relationships, career advice, and more. The podcast has received over 5,000 five-star reviews, many accolades, and has held a position as a top 25 podcast on both the Apple Podcast and Spotify charts for the past 3 years, which is amazing. Kenny is also the creator of the best-selling mindfulness journals, the New Mindset Journal, Unbothered, and Single is Your Superpower. And digital journals include Closure and Clarity. He's also the author of this book, But First, Inner Peace. And we've been reading from this book. I must say, I absolutely love it. And he is here today to answer your questions. He's here to answer your questions. So, Case, thank you again for being here today with us.
Thank you. That's so kind of you. Of course.
No, really appreciate it. We've been reading from your book every day, and we absolutely love it. Information on how to contact Case directly will be shared at the end of this conversation, as well as in the follow-up email, which will be sent to all the registrants tomorrow. Case, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, or like what brought you to this time and space?
Yeah, of course. So in this current time and space, I'm 34. I live in Chicago. I mean, I've always been a very self-aware individual, I would say. But when I was 28, 29, I just kind of was at a point in life where I just kind of asked myself, is this it? At the time, I had just gone through a breakup. I was also kind of exhausted by my job at the time. And I was just like, is this it? Am I doing the right things? Am I doing what I want to do? Am I borrowing other people's truths and timelines and all these things? And I was basically like, I don't know. And that kind of frustrated me that I didn't have a good answer. So I started the podcast kind of in response to that, as a challenge to myself. I had been writing online for a while, but I was like, I want to find a more vulnerable means to challenge myself to answer questions. And I was like, I'll do it on a podcast. So I started doing it on the podcast, New Mindset, Who Dis. Started giving my perspective, not the right perspective, not expert perspective, just my perspective. And it started to do really well. And then through that process, I realized what I was doing, which was practicing mindfulness, practicing the art of developing a self-aware mentality towards myself, the world around me, all these things. And that was 4.5 years ago, and basically just kept pulling on that thread of interest and passion. And mindfulness is a muscle. I got better at it. I got better at asking a question and answering it. And then fast forward 4.5 years, wrote a couple books, quit my job obviously, and just still pursuing what interests me and what helps me and what helps other people.
That's fantastic. Kudos to you too. And really, we have been reading this book, But First, Inner Peace, and I think it's fantastic. I really think it's fantastic. I really think it's fantastic. Actually, there's a couple things that jumped out at me. Before it gets into the book is set up like it's a 60-day challenge, I suppose is what you would call it, right? Is it a challenge, or what do you actually call the
Yeah, I think I called it an experience. uh,
experience? Right.
an experience.
It's
Yeah,
fantastic though. It's laid out very well. It has like a day, it has day one, and then it has like just really short, like 2, 3, 4 pages of easy reading, and then it has like a journal page to check in with yourself. And I really like it a lot. But before it even got to the pages, at the very beginning, it has, do you believe that a life-changing perspective exists? And I really love that. And I'm just wondering if you could expand on what you mean by that.
yeah. I mean, to my point where I was kind of joking that I'm an optimist, I think I approach mindfulness in a very practical way, right? Like I love to encourage people to think optimistically. I love to encourage people to expect great things in life, but I'm also realistic. Like life comes at you fast. We've got to be pragmatic. We have responsibilities. We have all these things. So I'm never one to be, butterflies and rainbows all the time. Life is life, and I'm sure we can all relate to that fact. But I do think there's something to be said about believing in change, believing that there's a moreness to life. If we're always convincing ourselves and always repeating a narrative that our best days are behind us, that this is it, this is as good as it gets, it's like, are we surprised when that becomes true? Well, no, not really, because you're just repeating that narrative. And you could refer to things like law of attraction and manifestation if you want. I just don't. I've always seen a disconnect between hoping for something but telling yourself something else. If you're hoping for an outcome in life, if you're hoping for change, if you're hoping for positivity, but you're constantly telling yourself that it doesn't exist, well, I struggle to believe how you're going to go out and find it. So I just wanted to open the book with encouraging people to suspend disbelief that there isn't more, there aren't better days ahead of them. Like, let's just try for 60 days to say there is more for me to discover. There is goodness in the world that is available to me. There are these things. I'm going to believe it, and then we'll go from there. So it's a recommendation, and I think it's a pretty integral part of manifesting and law of attraction if you believe in those kinds of things. But
Yeah.
I just think it's a powerful contrast to how sometimes we operate, especially as we get older. We're like, forget it.
Yeah, I just don't even know if I've heard the sentence laid out like that before. Do you believe that a life-changing perspective exists? And I really love that, because I do. I just don't think I've ever put it down into a sentence like that. And I think it's really, really a fantastic way you started the book. Also, before you get to the days, there's a section that says, what is inner peace? And then you have updating our definition of peace, being proud of yourself, and then how inner peace being the foundation of manifestation.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah. I mean, I inner peace is one of those words, of course, that's thrown around a lot. And I wouldn't say there's a right definition or a wrong definition. I think everyone has, merit behind how they define it. I just think it's a very, very integral part of taking action. I find a lot of confidence in myself when I define inner peace as forgiving myself, being proud of myself, these things that can then encourage me to take a next step, a first step, a second step, a 10th step, proud of myself for trying. So I just find it as like an energizing foundation for anything that will come, discovering that life-changing perspective, for instance. So, I rattled off a bunch of things that I think it is. And some might gravitate, some might not, but I think it's powerful to define what that looks like for you, because I think everyone's version of peace and calm and inner peace and power and empowerment probably looks different. For me, it's some of those things, but basically just an encouragement for people to define what it means for them and then be rooted in it, so that the subsequent chapters and exercises and challenges come from a place that is powerful, such that if you stumble or fall, you won't go back on yourself. You'll refer to that definition, and you'll find hope in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. I love the work that you're offering. I really do. I think it's wonderful. Does anybody have any questions right off the bat, or you want me to just keep pulling on mine real quick? Anybody? Okay. So I'm going to get to the days, and I'm not going to go through all the days, obviously. We don't have time for that. Although I got to say, every one of them, I would love to hear more about it. But day 6, say goodbye to limiting beliefs. We have been reading your book in our group. We have a Facebook group with relatively 600 or so women, and we read daily. And we have been reading your book. But there's a lot of people that watch this, listen to this, and are not involved in that group. So I think that one is really huge. Limiting beliefs. So day 6, say goodbye to limiting beliefs. If you could just talk about that one a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I had to look at it to remember what I talk about. I have all these ideas that I talk about. I see it now. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so limiting beliefs is an interesting topic, right? It's one of those things where we all have beliefs in life that are limiting, and it's an interesting subject because it's difficult to trace their origin if we're honest with ourselves. We might have limiting beliefs that I am not confident enough to do such and such. I am not attractive enough to be such and such. And we've lived with those ingrained subconsciously or overtly in our lives for so long. But if we were to take a step back and be like, where did this come from? We would probably kind of jumble the answer. We might be able to come up with an answer, but it would not be very logical or intuitive. And I just think there's a lot of power in challenging that through the question. I think that I proposed here was, what if I'm wrong? What if that wasn't a limiting belief? Let's suspend disbelief for a second. I have these things that I've been living subconsciously for so long, and I've lived by their rules. What if I took a step back and was like, that is not true? That is not true. What would that change? Well, it would probably change a lot of things, right? Namely,
A
your
lot.
ability to go out and pursue the thing that was limited by the belief in the first place. And that's a pretty powerful perspective, right? Just trying to put yourself in a headspace where that thing doesn't exist. And then also, like, I find a lot of like people, bemoan comparing yourself to other people a lot. And I think that's well served. I think a lot of times we put ourselves in a corner because we compare ourselves so much to other people, and we say, well, I'm not them, I'm less, and so on. But a lot of the time it's like, in life, someone's going to get what they want. Someone's going to get the partner they want, the money they want, the house they want, the job they want. Why? And the question I proposed in here was, why not you? Like, come up with definitive proof that you are not capable of getting that thing. And I think if you really be honest with yourself, you're going to struggle to actually come up with logical proof of that. You might be able to come up with a point here, a point there, but it'd probably go back to that limiting belief that we're trying to tear down here. And without that, the second question that I'm referencing, why not you, becomes much more difficult to answer. So it's basically just an exercise in challenging yourself, challenging your conditioning, challenging your assumptions, challenging your limiting beliefs by just trying a different way. I mean, all I do is really just come up with questions that you can ask yourself in the same way that a therapist might sit you down and just try to poke holes in something until you come to a realization. I
Right.
find those two questions: what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? And then why not you? I found that they're pretty powerful.
Do you think um, that we may even hide behind that a little bit, use it as an excuse somewhat sometimes, maybe?
I would say almost 100% of the time. I think
Yeah,
that
really. Yeah, huh?
it's the ultimate excuse. It's comfortable. It's what you know. When you don't try, you can't get hurt. When you lean on a limiting belief, you say, "Well, that's why I can't do it. Why would I even bother trying?" So yeah, I mean, uh, for sure, of
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
course.
Day 18. I really love this one. Day 18 is you are self-made. So it's all along. I mean, this book is just fantastic.
Thank you.
It's much more than I thought it. When I first bought it, I wasn't sure, but it has really, I think, been super fantastic. And you're right, just straight to the point and no BS. I really love your style. But yeah, day 18, you are self-made.
Yeah.
Take it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. It does mean a lot. Yeah, the whole self-made thing. I just like I hear a lot of people talk about their past, and of course, we all have a interesting relationship with our past. Some people gravitate towards, my past taught me this, my past taught me that. That's how I kind of tend to look at it. But then we have people who are also, you know, in their own right, they see their past as something that molded them into the person they are without their consent, right? Something happened to them that made them the way that they are, an upbringing that made them the way that they are. And of course, it's a totally valid perspective, right? The saying is we're all victims of victims, right? These are things that we had no saying in the matter. But I think the words we use are really important. Like we say things my past shaped me. When I think about that, and I'm assuming that's what I wrote about in here, I think that the word shaped just it infers a certain passiveness that I really don't like, and that I think is a disservice to ourselves. When we say my past shaped me, that's them saying I had no say in the matter. This is who I am today, and it's because of that. It's because of that thing. And again, certainly we're all victims of victims, and we did not have a say in that, especially in upbringing and so on and so forth. But I like the word taught me as a means, just through vernacular, of taking our power back. My past didn't shape me, it taught me. And here's what it taught me. And here's what I'm taking away from it. Me, not them, not that event, not that thing that happened to me. Here's what I am deciding. And this is why I am self-made. I'm not shaped by them, by their imperfection, by whatever happened. I'm taking my power back through a sense of activeness and saying my past shaped me, by saying not my past shaped me, my past taught me, and here's what it taught me. So it's literally just a reframing of words. And then in that same vein, maybe look in the mirror and a reassessment of your past. You know, I would never encourage someone to be like, no, you're not a victim. Like everyone is right in their own way that they see themselves. But maybe in a process like that, they can move themselves from a victim mindset to a more empowered mindset, from one of here's what that taught me. The person who hurt me helped me. Here's what they taught me, not shaped me, but here's how I'm taking back control, at least from an emotional standpoint, through that lesson. So yeah, I like that chapter. I think I did a full episode on this one as well. But again, it's the power of words. I mean, obviously I'm a writer. I have an interesting relationship with words, but I think we could all benefit from choosing them in a more compassionate way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That was really nicely said too. Yeah, so perspective on it. It's yeah, I really enjoyed that chapter.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions at the moment? Okay, go ahead, Sally.
Okay, interesting. You should bring all this up. I have changed quite a bit lately, and it's because of the Buddhist perspective that I have learned, and I have learned that it works for me. And you know, I do things and try it out and whatever. And but the one thing that it hasn't really, because it's helped me in many ways, but the big major thing of my whole entire life is I let's see, I don't have I want to say good self-concept or that kind of thing. That I think that I am less than and blah blah. Well, I have been able to do a lot of things that kind of hit next to that, but for some reason or other, I thought that particular big thing didn't have anything to do with the way they're talking, you know, and basically how they talk, or how I've learned it, is all of my conditioned thinking is really and truly just that, conditioned thinking, and I have to learn to think differently if I want to be me. And but I kind of ignored this one little part. So I've had kind of like 3 downfalls since I finally took this on. And they've all been about guilt and shame, you know, not good enough. And so I have just, it's been like 4 days since someone presented to me that's not any different than anything else that I have dealt with. You know, it's just another, like you say, it's really another word. Well, I never thought of it that way. You know, to me, that it was some big, huge thing that was out and beyond all of the other, you know. And so since that day, which is 4 days ago, I'm kind of on your wavelength. But you know, I kind of reached a good place about 3 months ago or 2 months ago, and I've had 3 times when I kind of went downhill again, and it's been all over shame. You know, that shame, somehow it started, and don't always know how it starts or what the words are that someone said or what I said to myself and all that. So I'm really into words too, or trying to be, and so I'm open to anything you can do there. And I'm already doing it, but you know, I know it's a big thing because it's been a part of my life for so long. And I'm old. So I've had a long life. So, you know, it's been a part of my life for a long time. So
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think, I think we underestimate the power of words. And I think sometimes we underestimate the processes in life, whether that's a healing process or a journey to some kind of, you know, recognition or forgiveness. Like we think it's very simple and streamlined and there's no triggering and there's no going back. I mean, certainly I'm younger and I don't have that perspective, but I think there's a lot of power while, you know, journeying the ups and downs and healing and then going back and regressing and going forward. The stories we tell ourselves with the words we use are everything. I mean, the whole genesis of this book and this concept was around the stories we tell ourselves. If we all say right now, think of a yellow car, we're all going to think of a yellow car, and it's done. It's a done deal. It's the same thing when we're looking for an outcome, whether that's a healing outcome or a forgiveness outcome or some kind of challenging conditioning outcome. It's like, what is the story that we're telling ourselves? Are we constantly telling ourselves that there is no positive outcome, that shame is too much to overcome, that guilt is too much to overcome? And you know, it's one of those things that I think takes a lot of training and suspending of judgment, particularly not in the Buddhist terms, but there's a Greek philosophical term called epoche, which basically means the suspending judgment. So in the instances where we're very quick to guilt ourselves or shame ourselves or go back to a mindset that we thought we had outgrown, we love to react very quickly. But the idea of epoche means before we have any opinion about ourselves or others, we suspend judgment. And through that process, hopefully find something more redeeming. And it's such a practical thing. It's like, think before you speak, think before you think. But as humans, we're not wired that way. Like, especially the longer you live life and the more that you've wired yourself to think a certain way, it's like it just becomes robot mode. We become opinion robots. And the idea of epoche is to get us just to pause before we guilt ourselves further, shame ourselves further, assume the same things we've always assumed. So, you know, Buddhism, you know, the ancient Greek philosophers, Seneca, whoever you're referencing in life, I think it all comes down to that idea of, you know, a semblance of compassionate self-control. And I think the words we use can very much help with that. And I did that episode the other day, and like now in stressful times in life or points where I'm triggered, I literally say to myself, epoche, just that becomes my knee-jerk reaction. And I don't know if that's helpful, but talking about words, that's one that I love.
Mantra. You got a new mantra. Got a new mantra. Yeah. Yeah, so that is pretty powerful then, that 18. Because Sally works a lot on herself, and I'm glad that there was something to that. I really like that a lot myself. It clicked something with me as also, and it really is fantastic there. Thank you, Sally. Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else have anything at the moment? Go ahead, Kim.
Hi, Case. It's nice to meet you. I think that you were born when I graduated high school. I can't believe that. Um, but I'm so glad that there's souls like you that are walking the earth, because I was also late to the party as far as your podcast, but I've been listening to it, and I did see that episode you're talking about. I have a question about one of your episodes where you were talking about how did you put it, with like the male and female, and how males don't tend to take on their female essence, and females don't take on the male essence. I guess I just wanted to hear more of that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I did an episode on
It's
male
like
and
energy. Yeah.
male and masculine and feminine energy
Yep.
was the idea. And it's not an origination with me. These are terms that are thrown around a lot, especially nowadays. Gen Z, millennials, especially on social media, love to talk about masculine energy and feminine energy. And it's something that everyone talks about. I figured I would throw my hat in the ring. And it was basically just an acknowledgement, for one, that those terms are just constructs that we've created. Those are just words. For someone to say this is right or that is right, like I don't know. All I know that in my life, with the people that I surround myself with and the person that I try to be as the straight man, is the best version of me is one that is not just masculine, if we're borrowing from the adjectives that are associated with masculinity and feminine energy. Like the best version of myself, the best version of my friends are those that are balanced. That is a balance between, a masculine energy of confidence, control, assertiveness, but also with a feminine energy of sensitivity and kindness and warmth, right? For instance, if we're just going through the stereotype ends. So that was basically just the episode of encouraging people to find balance, because we just think people nowadays think so binary. You're either right or you're wrong. You're
Right.
either this or you're that. And I just like, life cannot possibly be that simple. And I'm sure you could all attest to that. There are times where it's just not true. And I don't know. I just like, there's so much content on social media about, men need to be this and women need to be this. And here's the role that a
Right.
woman needs to be and a man needs to be this. And I just think it's a little silly, to be honest, that the best version of all of us is found in the balance between the two. To say that you're not attractive or worthy if you are a woman with masculine energy or a man with feminine energy, I think it's just bananas. And I was just trying to combat that a little bit.
My other question is, what happened, Case? Did you get dumped or something? Where did all this wonderful understanding come from?
That's what everyone asks me. Everyone's like, who hurt you?
Who hurt you? It screams in the podcast. I'm like, who hurt this man?
I know. And to be honest, I wish I had like a better story where I could be like, I was like devastated and this thing happened. I don't have that story. Like I did start the podcast when I was 28, 29 after a breakup, but it wasn't like a crazy thing. It was one of those relationships that needed to end. I was like, thank God this is over. I just didn't have the confidence to end it. So no, I just have always found myself to be a self-aware person. And I think the talent that I've been given, as weird as it sounds, is like, my talent is simplifying things and simplifying it in an empathetic way. Like, I think that's my talent in life. It's not on a list. I'm not a great swimmer or good with math. I'm good at simplifying emotions. And, I try to come from a place of empathy. And that's why I talk to as many people as I can. Now, present crowd included. I talk to people on Instagram. I love to get other people's perspectives. And, I find a lot of empathy in that, and that kind of becomes part of me. So when I'm talking about these things that, people are like, oh, there's pain in your voice. And it's like, well, it's not really my pain. It's just an empathy towards people who have been through these things. And then I'm trying to apply my skill towards it. So it's a great question. But I think it's just kind of the way that I've been wired, and, I've lived a great privileged life so far. And obviously thankful for that.
Well, I think it's a wonderful skill that you have, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
I agree with that too. I love your message. I love the whole be proud of yourself message, and live from that intention of being proud of yourself. I think that's remarkable. And I've been trying to apply it
Me too.
to live with that as the intention. I think it's very interesting. Thanks so much, Kim. Thanks so much, Kim. Anybody else have any questions at the moment? Got a couple more here, Case. Let's see.
Sure.
So day 34, take your own advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
34.
I don't even have to
Yep.
look at that. I know what that chapter is about. Yeah, I mean, I like that chapter a lot because again, my whole thing is like, I'm just encouraging people to come at their life from a different angle, a new angle, an angle that maybe challenges how they've been robot moding for so long. And, you know, the whole idea of take your own advice is if you think about your life or, you know, previous chapters of your life or whatever it may be, I think we're pretty great at giving advice to friends, family, maybe. Like at least we ask them good questions, maybe give them good things to consider. We might not have the answer for them, but as a good friend, we're there for them. We support them. We validate their feelings and we say, have you thought about this or thought about that? We're good at it. Right. But we suck at doing the same thing for ourselves. So it's basically just the idea of suspending judgment, epoche for a second, and pretending that you were giving the same advice to a friend or asking a friend. If you switched, did a little role play and you came to a friend or your friend came to you with the same problem that you're facing, what advice would you give them? Or what advice would they give you? However you want to play the role. What would you say? And the reason I think it's so powerful, of course, is quite logical. It's that we're so close to our own lives. We're so ingrained in the assumptions that we've been living for so long. We're so close to it that sometimes what it takes is backing up a second to see the answer. I think if I recall, my inspiration for this episode was a story that I heard about a therapy session between a person and a therapist. And basically the person said that, you know, he was in therapy with the therapist, and the therapist wrote something down on a piece of paper, you know, a couple of lines, and then he grabbed the paper and put it all the way up to the person's nose and was like, what does this say? And the person was like, I don't know, it's too close, I can't read it. And he was like, well, there you go, sometimes you're too close to your life to see what's in front of you, right? Simple analogy. But it's true. Like, we're so close to our own things. Sometimes what it takes is taking a step back, objectively approaching it. I think one of the reasons we can give impactful advice to friends is we care about them, but we're not as close to it as they are. Can we say the same for ourselves? Can we care about ourselves? Can we observe without feeling for a second? Can we practice epoche, observe, think, then feel? It's just a powerful way I've found to approach either problem solving or finding clarity or whatever it is we're looking for.
Yeah, it's that pause. It's all in that pause, isn't it? It's all in that pause. Yeah, take your own advice. It made me. I'm not going to say what it made me. Yeah, because we are so good at well, I think it's easier to recognize, like you said, it's easier to recognize when you see it in somebody else. It's like it's crystal clear sometimes, but and we are too close is a good the way to phrase that. And then that follows, the next day is day 35. You're capable of so much more.
See what I wrote for this chapter. Yeah, I mean, I think this chapter was basically a reflection of one, learning experiences, giving ourselves more credit for what we have and letting go of the things that are holding us back, namely limiting beliefs or, you know, the weight of past decisions, guilt, shame, whatever it is. I don't remember exactly what I said in that chapter, but I would say, you know, a lot of the time the assumption that is in life that to be happier, for instance, being happier comes from more, it comes from better, it comes from these things. And certainly that's the case sometimes, but also happiness, contentment, that's a word, fulfillment. Sometimes it comes from different, sometimes it comes from simpler. Like, what are some of the things we can get rid of? Like, maybe we don't need to do more, maybe we need to do less of something. Can we figure out what that is? Maybe that's the approach, or maybe it's doing something drastically different, a complete 180. I just find sometimes we're focused on the wrong things. We assume that to be happier is we need to do more and more and more and more. And obviously that's the case in some scenarios, but not all of them. So what are the lessons that we've learned? How can we apply those and maybe try to seek out simpler or different for once and put down the rest? I think there's a quote that's like, you know, like becoming your best self is less about becoming more, and becoming your best self
Right.
is about unbecoming certain aspects of yourself, right?
Right. I've
Unbecoming
seen
the
that.
negative aspects, letting go of these things. I don't know who said that quote, but that's the idea here. Like, can you carry a lesson with you and then, you know, lessen your grip on the memory? Can you carry with, you know, whatever it is that you can define as something worth moving forward and let go of the rest? Different, simpler, instead of more and better, I think was probably my take there.
Right. Yeah. It's not so much becoming, it's actually releasing
That's yeah.
what isn't you kind of
Yeah,
thing. Right.
exactly.
Which
Yep.
is some of us took a little bit longer,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
like you said, for sure. And just a couple more here, because there's the book is loaded with them, Day 37 is put yourself first. Our audience needs to hear that one.
Yeah, imagine that. I mean, I think a lot of the times we, you know, we think it's selfish. Like, I, you know, I think I do a lot of dating content, and it's like, I've always said that I think dating should at first be approached from, how can this relationship help me? How can this better my life? And I think, of course, that should be the approach. It's kind of a strange approach if your first thought when approaching dating or a relationship is, how can I help this person? Like, I think it's great to be compassionate and selfless, of course, but I think in life, there's a certain level of compassionate self-centeredness that we need to embrace. I mean, it's not narcissistic, it's not selfish, it's the means to enable us to then go out and be a great partner or a great friend or make impact in the world. I think without that, you know, I think making yourself a priority for once, it teaches you a lot of different things in different areas of your life. Namely, if you figure out what you want, you figure out what makes you happy, you figure out what you can offer other people. And I just think, you know, there's something to be said about making a decision and saying, I'm going to put myself first for a little bit. And the impact that's going to have in my life is going to serve me in my relationships and in everything to come. But I just, again, I think the value here is just challenging ourselves. I think social media and the media has really made us think that, you know, saying no means we're selfish, or putting ourselves first means we're narcissistic. And you know, we're talking a lot about words here. People love a good label. And I think younger generations, mine, Gen Z, everyone nowadays is narcissistic and this and that. And I don't know if that's true. Like, I think sometimes we throw those terms around without really giving them much thought. Loving yourself, saying no to someone else because it threatens your growth, that's not, you know, selfish, as long as you're communicating honestly and openly. Like, it's the best thing you can do for yourself. And at a certain point in our lives, I think we should all be doing it whenever we can. So I'm assuming that's what I wrote in this chapter.
Yeah, well, yeah, there, for some reason, there has been, at least in my mind, there was confusion between selfish and self-care. Even, you know, that whole self thing, for some reason, it was misinterpreted as being selfish. And that doesn't, I'm here to say, it doesn't lead to a good outcome by
Yeah.
living in that energy. Yeah, actually, truthfully, that's been most of the people that I've dealt with have been trying to come back from that, because this was around well before social media was. And that whole selfish, somehow we got self-love, self-care confused with selfish. And I really didn't realize it was still a considerable consideration there. I didn't realize it was still like that out there.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
because I thought for sure the younger generations were, you know, because actually back in my previous generations before me, the women were self-serving. I mean, you know, they had to be subservient, but that's the way the whole evolution has happened. You know, it used to be the wife would stay home, and that was all part of it. And I think it kind of might have been held over from there, but it seems to me the younger generations have more of a their own standards and like, well, this is, my, like even having children has dropped off because people are putting themselves first. And then, but that's interesting that it's still out there like that in full force. Does anybody else have any questions? I don't want to hog all of the time with Case. Okay, just a couple more. So you got to put yourself first, and then there's only two more. I have day 44 is turn off your brain and listen to your soul.
What a title. God, I don't
The
know
meat and potatoes here. We're really
how I come
hitting
up with these things. Let me take a look.
day 44. Turn off
Yeah.
your brain, listen to your soul.
Yeah. 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 I think for this, yeah, I mean, I think it'll like, I obviously have fallen to certain themes here. I think this is a matter again of challenging ourselves, of challenging our conditioning, of asking ourselves, maybe this belief isn't true. Because I mean, certainly we could probably talk all day about how we interpret our brain versus our soul, our heart, like these kinds of ethereal things. But I mean, there is a certain sense that your head is practical and your heart is intuition. Let's align with that. But a lot of the times we confuse the two and we get massively wrapped up in assumptions, and again, negative storytelling. And I think what I was encouraging people here with is turning your brain off for a second. Your brain is anxious, your brain overthinks, your brain can be irrational. Your brain is auto in comparison mode, saying, well, that person has this, therefore you need this. That person has the right way, you need to emulate them. What if, for a second, epique, we assume that that wasn't the case? What if you don't need that paycheck? What if you don't need that partnership? What if you don't need that house? What if you don't need that thing? What would that mean then? Well, if you took that out of the equation, well, then hopefully at that point, your heart is speaking, your intuition is speaking, your inner child is speaking, whatever you want to refer to. What vibe are you getting from them in that sense? Again, just a different way to come at the idea of challenging ourselves, challenging conditioning, challenging what we've told ourselves is possible, challenging the truths we've borrowed from other people. How many things do we believe that we haven't experienced for ourselves? Like I talk a lot about that, particularly with this generation and Gen Z, is a lot of the truths we operate by are truths that we have watched in movies, read in books, seen on social media. And it's great, again, to be inspired by those, but are those true for you? One person's standard for dating might not be even close to what you need. Truly, you might not need that. But if you don't challenge it, you could say, no, I need that because they said I need it. So that's mine. And that's your brain thinking. But what is your heart telling you? So basically just encouraging people to try to draw a line between the two and asking yourself, where are these truths coming from? Where are your expectations coming from? Where are your timelines coming from? Are they yours? Are they someone else's? It's okay if there's someone else's, but like, what proof do you have that that's right for you? So just encouraging people to find a way to prove or disprove. And I thought the analogy of your head being irrational, your heart being intuitive, let's try to listen to both instead of letting, namely your head override your heart or your soul.
Cool. Perspective again. Perspective. And the last one I have is 58 gratitude. 58 gratitude.
Yep. Well, I have no idea what I wrote there, but I'll say that, gratitude is one of those subjects, of course, everyone's like, oh, I got to practice gratitude. What I've discovered lately, and it's probably actually not what I wrote in here, but gratitude is one of those things where a lot of times in life, we think that to be grateful, gratitude will come when I'm happy because then I'll have things to be grateful for, right? It's a logical circular loop. And we're like, once I'm happy, then I'll be grateful. Once I'm successful, then I'll be grateful. And we wrap it up in the sense of, well, I'm still working towards that thing. I'm not quite ready to be grateful because I'm not there yet. And I get that. But I think what we found and a lot of people have realized is that, gratitude sometimes is the thing that makes us happy, is the thing that makes us successful. Like we've got the order reversed. Gratitude truly is, for all the cliches written about it and spoken about it, it really is like the source of the things that we want. It's the other way around. We think that happiness will give us gratitude, success will give us gratitude, and so on. But really, practicing gratitude as a habit is what allows us to possibly open ourselves up to being happy. So I don't know if that's what I wrote in that chapter, but that's been something I've been thinking a lot about lately when it comes to the subject of gratitude, because we could always find reasons that we're not grateful. Oh, just one more thing, one more this, one more that, and then I'll be happy, then I'll be grateful. But it's the other way around. A lot of the times, practicing like true radical gratitude, in the sense of sitting down and like vulnerably actually coming up with things you're grateful for, with vulnerability, you can be like, well, okay, that's pretty solid. I'm happy. Like that can make me happy if I practice that and lean into that. So maybe it's just like an order of operations thing that I'd encourage people to look at, but understand the role that gratitude can play. Gratitude isn't the final stop on the journey. It's probably one of the first, and leaning into that as opposed to hoping to receive gratitude as a gift, as an outcome, I think is just a powerful reframing.
Beautiful. Yeah, and you wrote in here that a year from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, you'll regret not enjoying what you have today. Just be happy for whatever, for no reason whatsoever. Just be happy for no reason whatsoever. It is, gratitude is the foundation there. Let's see, does anybody else have any questions before we? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, it's me again. How do you spell that word? What'd you say?
Oh yeah, so that's the warning there. I might be mispronouncing it. It's EPOCHE with like a accent on the E. It's Greek.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
love your authenticness and your realness, and
Yeah.
what a beautiful person. Wouldn't you say?
And what's next for you?
A bunch of things. I'm writing another book. I'm coming out with some music. I got a game coming out in Target and Walmart in a month. Potentially moving to Miami. Just got a bunch of things going on here.
Wow.
Well, we're in Florida. Most of us here are in Florida. So.
Oh, cool.
You look us up.
Yeah, I feel like the warmth would be good. I've spent too many winters in Chicago, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're not even kidding. You're not kidding. Does anybody else have any questions? Thank you so much, Kim. Okay, what a true delight. Truly. Thank you again. Is there any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we get to your before I share your contact information? Any final thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I appreciate the platform. Truly, I love talking about this stuff, and I get a lot of value out of hearing myself talk about it, because it just reminds me of the things that we need to realize. I think life does funny things where we all know certain truths, but then the noise, experiences, other people's noise gets in the way of us remembering it. So anytime I can sit down and talk about it and have a dialogue is one that I enjoy. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Sally?
What's the game? Do you have any idea what it is?
Here, I'll show you to you.
Yeah.
It's not out yet.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. So it's
Better Than Yesterday.
It's called Better Than Yesterday. It's basically it's got 365 challenges in it, and they're just like little cards that this one says no swearing for 24 hours. This one says tell a joke to a stranger. Print out a picture of a fond memory and put it in a picture frame. Basically little actions that I have wrapped up in mindfulness that can encourage probably people to practice mindfulness in ways that are more approachable, with pictures and words and jokes and things like that.
Right.
So excited for
it. Anything we can do to get people to think a little bit, hey?
That's the idea. Imagine that. Imagine everyone thinking.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So the website is, you can listen to New Mindset Who Dis on all streaming platforms, or visit New Mindset Who Dis. That's NEWMINDSETWHODIS.com. New Mindset whodis.com for more and latest news and information. You can follow Case Kenny on Instagram at case.kenny. And is that a dot at the end or is that a period? So it's at case.kenny.
Correct.
At case.kenny. And we'll send out all this information in a follow-up email along with the link for replay tomorrow. Please visit Zenful Conversations to sign up more of these wonderful conversations where you get to ask the questions. Case, in true gratitude.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate
Thank you so
it.
much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I appreciate you
You.
coming so much. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
All right.
Thank you.